Welcome everyone to Mail Fuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 6, Episode 13. It's called Aquiel. So, full spoilers for the episode as always. We got a bit of a murder mystery of sorts. They go to a little station, a little outpost, where there's been some distress, and there's no one there when they get there except a dog who's sort of hiding in the vents. But there is like a, dare I say, a bit of a goo puddle just lying on the floor.
I mean, that might be being generous.
I just wanted to fit puddle in because, you know, Tasha's legacy.
I know, but calling it goo is maybe giving it more substance than is really there.
Stain, there's a...
Yeah, stain's probably closer.
There's a stain. It still looks a little bit moist though, at least. It's got a bit of stickiness to it.
Yeah, I suppose.
So they're looking into this, and Geordi starts going through kind of the. So there was two officers here. There was a Klingon officer, and I can't remember what race they said she was, but she's only just slightly not human. Like she's got a little bit of stuff above her eyebrows, but otherwise she looks human.
Pretty much. Yeah.
But she was like the junior officer. And he starts looking through her logs, and it's kind of like, okay, he's sort of like, he's clearly kind of attracted to her, and he's starting to like her through the logs. But then, like 50 minutes into the episode, she shows up. The Klingons who are patrolling the sector show up. There's speculation that the Klingons who patrol the sector were up to no good. There's other speculation as well. Did she possibly murder her superior officer? Which puts Geordi in a bit of a bind because he's starting to have feelings for her, but wants to, Riker calls him out on his judgment being a little bit maybe impaired. So that's the gist of the episode, and we can get into the nitty gritty as we go. How did you feel about Aquiel?
Oh man, Geordi has serious problems.
Do you know what I've noticed?
Again, the same thing.
Geordi has a type, and his type is he falls for women when they're not there, just via either recordings or like simulations, and then meets them later. And I mean, admittedly, technically it goes better this time because she actually is kind of into him, and
it is, but it's just a bit creepy, isn't it? Still,
do you know what's funny is that I would have no problem with it in this episode if she didn't turn up to be alive halfway through. See at the first half, but he was just sort of watching her logs, and he was like, "Oh, I kind of like her. She's kind of nice." Like it didn't feel creepy to me on its own. It just kind of felt like, "Oh, this seems like a nice person that I could get on with." And it's the same as she's dead, and we're investigating the murder. I was actually kind of enjoying the episode, and then she showed up alive, and then once everything else started happening, it was like, okay, now it's kind of losing me, and it's going all over the place now.
Yeah, and there's a very strange power imbalance where he knows like all of her secrets basically that she's spilled to her sister, all these private things, and she knows nothing about him.
Yeah, I don't know if it's intentional, but he's definitely got a thing for that dynamic.
He does. It's really not healthy.
Done it a few times. He's basically someone who falls in love with a YouTuber. So to all the people out there who fall in love with me, don't be creepy.
Yeah, this is essentially the dangers of parasocial relationships. Just, I guess slightly ahead of it. So, I mean, I guess people did it with celebrities and in magazines and stuff anyway. But now it's a little bit more heightened because there's interaction that you. Yeah,
this feels. It's not the same, obviously, but this feels closer to modern day like internet potential parasocial relationships than it does celebrity.
It does. I think part of that's just we're bringing our bias from today into it. But then I think part of that contributes towards it in the feeling is it's a very the personal insights is what he's getting attached to, not just the image that's in the magazines or whatever. Yeah,
arguably this is like the slightly older version of this that you would maybe get in an older story is someone reading someone's diary, and that's like how they get to know. They don't get to see them, but they're still sort of falling for the ideas that they're talking about and like the things they're revealing. So. Yeah, I was kind of into the first like 10-15 minutes well enough. I thought it was an interesting mystery.
Then we throw that away and present a whole new mystery.
I actually think like there's a sort of idea that's introduced very late in the episode, which I think is an interesting concept that could have made for a fun, kooky I won't quite say body horror episode, but I'm talking about the hand coming out the goo, and I'm like, you know what? You could build a whole episode around this idea, and that would probably be a fun episode. The problem here is that it's shoehorned in the last like 5-10 minutes, and there's no time to do anything else. So immediately you know, well, the thing is the dog, because otherwise we wouldn't have spent so much time with this dog all episode. It's just
exactly.
You know, she's
honestly the thing itself though is interesting.
Oh sure, yeah, and I'm saying the thing because it is very similar to The Thing, as in John Carpenter's The Thing.
It is. I think, you know, a whole episode with that kind of, who's it going to take next? Is someone already? We have like 5 minutes of it at the end. Like, is one of those two taken? And but it's too little, too late at that point. But a whole episode of that could be fantastic. Yeah,
it's just her and the Klingon. Not the Klingon she was with because he's dead, obviously, but the Klingon that was kind of harassing her. That was like the local Klingon sheriff for that sector, basically. And she was having some problems with him. She was having problems with her superior. She doesn't really seem to remember anything. And you know, the reveal later on is that this goo parasite monster thing was actually starting to drain her memories, and that's why she has no memory after a certain point. It does sound very suspicious, though. You know, when we're doing the murder investigation, it kind of sounds like you have no memory after that point. You're deleting certain records to hide certain things. You know,
definitely suspicious.
Yeah, it's you know, it's frustrating because like I want to like small moments where Riker's calling him out and saying, look, maybe you shouldn't get too close to this particular job because clearly your personal feelings are starting to get in the way, things like that. And I think Riker in so many ways represents the audience in this episode because he's actually kind of into hearing about this weird, you know, when Geordi's watching the logs and Riker comes in and he's asking about it, you know, he smiles a couple of times because he's sort of telling, starting to like her, Geordi, is that right? But obviously once things take a turn and she's there alive and there's all this, you know, mysterious circumstances as to why, you know, what happened, did she do something wrong, all this stuff. I mean, I'll give it some credit. At least it didn't, you know, unlike every other episode like this, like she did actually reciprocate the feelings with Geordi, and at the end they seem quite happy, but they're also not going to do the cop-out thing of, he's going to get her a job on, you know, he offers, he says, I can probably get you a job in the Enterprise, and she's like, you know what, no, I'll earn that job. I won't.
Yeah.
You know, so.
But the problem is, as much as you go, to its credit, she reciprocates, it's still weird, because it's like, how much is she only reciprocating? Because that first, you know, good handful of interactions they have, he already, you know, he knows, you know, the type of person that he should present himself to be. You know, he pulls out, like, you know, all little bits of her language, and, you know, he says all these little things that are, he only knows because he's seen her, you know, her personal logs.
To be fair, when I say she reciprocates as a positive, I purely mean just in the sense of it's different than the other episodes that are like this. Where they introduce a love interest, but it has to be tragic or sad by the end. I'm just, for the sake of difference, I appreciate that this one doesn't have a sad end.
It's different, but I think it's kind of worse in terms of, like, it makes the whole relationship more uncomfortable.
Yeah, I can't really argue.
I'm glad he actually comes clean about it this time, relatively early, as opposed to her having to just, you know, stumble into it like usual. It's
pretty quick, and it's not like he was being snoopy. He had a good reason. They were investigating what happened to her, and she was presumed dead, so it was like, well, it's kind of open season on all of her files. And, you know, he fesses up quite quickly. She's like, how much of those did you watch? Did you see all of them? And he's like, most of them, pretty much. Like, you know, maybe didn't quite finish, but he saw enough to have...
He was enjoying himself to keep watching them all.
Yeah. You know, it's that thing where they introduce this dog, the dog's hiding. So as soon as they introduce, some kind of shapeshifter that mimics other things, and it immediately cuts to the dog with Geordi, and I'm like, you know, that dog was in a lot of the first half of the episode and then disappeared, you know, and then we just didn't see it for a while. So now you've immediately cut to it after that scene. It's like, well, I've got a funny feeling.
Yeah. Also, I laughed a little bit that they couldn't get a dog that would act quite how they wanted it to, I don't think. Because you know, when they first find it, it's there's something making all this noise. There's like a panel that's rattling, like it's loose. And they go in, and the dog's just sat there, not moving at all. And I feel like the episode called for it to actually be trying to get out, and it was like stuck behind the panel because they had to move something out of the way of the panel,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
So I feel like the episode called for it to be trying to knock its way out, but it couldn't. But the dog's just chilling, just laying at the back of this tunnel. Like, that was just first dog they could find, maybe that was free for set that day.
I mean, I can buy that it just stopped before they, it backed away when
if it
it
had
came
been
close.
next to the entrance, maybe, but it was just the way it was just chilling at the back, like it'd been sat there for ages.
Okay, working with animals, it's
Like I say, not actually a big deal, but I did laugh because I noticed it really obviously. Yeah, but like I say, working with animals, it's you take what you can get sometimes.
Yeah, there's some Klingon diplomacy here. Obviously, when this all goes down, Picard's like, okay, I'll talk to the local Klingon leader, right, in the sector. And he talks to this dude, and he's like, are you accusing a Klingon of murder? He immediately takes it personally that he dared. And he's not even accused, he's just saying he wants to investigate, he wants to ask him questions, he wants to look into it, and, like we think of criminal investigations, you exclude the possibilities one by one. And he gets so offended, and Picard's like, okay, fine, I'll just have to go to Gowron. And he's like, wait, Gowron? How would you know Gowron? He's like, well, that was his well, I can't remember what you call it. He's arbiter, I think. Was that the word? No.
Sounds right, but also it doesn't seem like the right context.
Whatever it was, he was his best man at his Klingon ascension, right? That's what he was. He's like, I'll just have to go around, and I'll have to bring your name up, because you're the one I spoke to, and the guy shits himself. I'll look into it, Picard. I'll look into it. Don't have to talk to Gowron. It's fine.
Yeah,
I'll get to it.
Dude's terrified of Gowron.
And that kind of persists for the rest of the episode, because when they find this Klingon that was harassing them, but every time he went past, this dude, this Klingon sheriff or whatever you want to call him, he is like, no, you will answer his questions, you will do this. And Picard's like, we'd like to keep him in custody until we've sorted this matter out, and he's like, take him. I don't know, it was just kind of funny seeing Picard sort of wave his Klingon credentials around a little bit. I got some.
It was very much a, hey, I have powerful friends, so I'm going to pull that card.
I mean, it's literally they're not even just president, they're a leader of their entire planet.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, Gowron wouldn't come here. He's like, well, yeah, I'm sure if I asked him, he would. Yeah. And we can't have Gowron here. That would be terrible.
Yeah. I almost wish it just because, like I say, I didn't like that she turned up alive, because then it was like, oh, we're going to do the actual romance thing now. But also because it was a bit more interesting when it was more just straight up crime scene stuff. Worf's taking readings. He's like, oh, there was a Klingon here for sure, so one of them definitely came on. I was looking forward to piecing the mystery together.
Yeah, I think there's a few times in this episode where I feel that where it could have been more interesting with another choice. Like at the end where it's like, oh, it was the dog all along. I do feel like it might have been really interesting if it was her, because they talk about how it takes their memories. It acts like them. It is, for all intents and purposes, them in disguise.
Yeah.
I just felt that would have been a more interesting route to go around. Where again, it maybe plays it a bit more tragic for Geordi in the idea that she was dead all along, but there's just this thing wearing her body. That I don't know. For me, that would have been a more interesting ending.
Yeah, no. I think the fact that it was a dog was just a homage to the thing, because I think they knew this was a take on that same plot, and they were intentionally kind of homaging that, because that starts with a dog as well. There's a couple of okay kind of red herring elements to things, she when she's getting close to Geordi towards the end, right as the others are learning about this shape shifting kind of or mimic kind of thing. This is when she's got her crystal thing out, and she's got Geordi, and she's doing the little ceremony, and part of you's thinking, oh, is this how she does it? Is this how the mimic switches? And it's not, obviously, because it turns out to be her, but
yeah, it was quite interesting because the way it was described by Crusher, it was like, it just does this thing, and that's just it. It's like these small beings that kind of coalesce into it. And then, this thing comes out and you're like, oh, this is ritual. And you're questioning if it is this, even though it makes no actual sense with what Crusher has told us. You still question it anyway.
You're feeling suspicious of her because you now have reason to think that she's up to something.
Right. And I think in that regard, it's one of the few areas the episode is successful in making us feel suspicious of her. Even though that completely defies any of the logic of what it's actually told us.
Yeah.
We're still suspicious anyway of
Besides,
this moment.
to go on that previous point, this could just be a genuine thing because, again, like you said, it has her memories, but then she'll have to, because Crusher makes it clear this is temporary. Like it'll have to pick a new mimic soon. The small versions, it's literally seconds, if not minutes or hours. So this one probably lasts longer. It's probably days. It's probably a few days before it. And it is quite funny because, when the dog does come after Geordie at the end, right before the ending, and it just turns into this CG kind of blob.
Yes, that just hitting it with a phaser does the trick.
Yeah, it just has with a phaser and that's it. It feels very rushed and like just...
It doesn't even like do it. It just vanishes.
Yeah. The whole resolution just feels very quick, and then there's one scene with Geordie and her, with Aquiel, just on 10 forward talking, and that's basically it. That's the end of the episode. There's not a whole lot to it. This is like one of the smallest amounts of data ever in an episode. I think I only noticed them in like one of the meeting scenes, and he's just kind of... I don't even think he has a line. He's just sitting there.
I don't think he does, yeah.
Yeah, and I was thinking, man, like, all that time in the makeup chair just to sit there and not say anything.
Yeah, but he'll got paid a decent amount for that.
I mean,
easiest days pay he's ever had.
What I'm thinking is that there was overlapping episodes, and he was shooting a lot of data scenes for the other episode. He's like, I might as well sit in this scene for this one, even though I'm not technically important in it.
Yeah, okay, he'll be, as a regular, he'll get paid either way.
Oh,
right?
sure, yeah. It was just because when I saw him sitting at the meeting at one point, I think it's when the Klingons are there, I was like, wait, I've not seen you yet this episode, Data, I don't think. I never said that, and I was like, oh, I guess there's just not a lot of Data this episode, which is fine.
Hi, Data. Yeah.
But Data, I guess, is more on his fair share of focus all the time, so it's perfectly okay.
It probably gets like the second most amount, I'd say, after Picard.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Not that's a bad thing. I think it's...
No, there's a reason for that. He's got this interesting, dynamic, and
it's an easy one to do. It's the same way we had like a lot of Spock episodes in the original series. He's the different one, and we have a few other different ones on this show. Don't get me wrong, but he's the obvious analysis.
Yeah, it's probably Data second, and then Riker third, then Worf fourth, for similar reasons to Data, and he's because he's Klingon and he has all these like individual things.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, Geordie, Crusher, and Troy might all be about equal in terms of how many episodes they get focusing on them.
Yeah, there's a smattering of each of them.
Yeah. And Tasha had like one, maybe two, in a short tenure.
Depends. Do you count the ones where she's come back after? Because that adds another couple on.
Well, you can count the ones where it was her from the alternate timeline. I don't think you can't count the Romulan, no.
No, but the alternate timeline one that counts as a Tasha episode.
Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, it's a pretty mediocre episode overall. It's just to make some uninteresting choices, and the ideas that seem fun, like even though it would just be like a different take in the thing, it's less grotesque. It's more the ooze from like Ghostbusters 2, I would say, that kind of forms into something. But the visual of like Crusher's like canned copy like coming out of this goo, that looked like an interesting effect. It was like, oh,
Someone had fun knocking up that prosthetic.
Yeah, I could do with an episode about that. I mean, but hey ho, we got what we got, and that's it. So I'll look ahead to next time and see what's
pretty
coming.
mediocre, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's the mediocre. It wasn't the worst thing ever. There's been far worse episodes, but
there's been worse Geordie romance episodes.
That's true. Yes. All right. So next up, we got Face of the Enemy is the title. Deanna awakes. Yes. Deanna awakes herself to find. Why am I having so much trouble with this sentence? Deanna awakes to find herself altered to look like a Romulan. Immediately, unaware she's involved in a cat and mouse game as a member of their intelligence agency.
What?
So essentially, she wakes up and she's a Romulan. So something's altered the world, or she's became a Romulan in an alternate universe. Or something.
Yeah, that started by it sounded like it was her appearance that changed, and then by the end it sounds like she's body swapped with a Romulan, maybe. Yeah,
she's straight up like a part of the Romulan like regime and like somewhat high up in their rankings by the sound of it.
Yeah, it sounds like she's like Freaky Friday'd with a Romulan.
Yeah, it's got a good rating as well. So and it sounds
is there a Romulan in her body?
That seems like something.
Yeah,
It's
that'll be
possible.
my assumption based off that description, but we'll find out.
I mean, she is playing the role. I can just see from the images, it's her in the Romulan makeup, but okay. I wonder if it's more like something's wonky with her empath ability, and she's kind of went into a Romulan in that way, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, she's straight up just like taking over a Romulan, not intentionally, obviously. It sounds like it's a surprise to her.
It definitely does, yeah.
Yeah, so
well, we'll find out.
yeah, so we got Romulan stuff next time on Next Gen.
As far as Troy episodes go, it definitely sounds like it should be one of the better ones.
It doesn't sound like a romance episode, which is an instant plus compared to
that's true, yeah.
To everything else. So that's next time on Next Gen, but of course, next Star Trek review from us will be a Deep Space Nine episode, so episode 6, I believe. So look forward to that. You can, of course, tell us what you thought of this episode of Next Generation in the comments below. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications. You can support the show by hitting the super thanks button below the video, or you can go over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and support us on a more consistent basis over there and help keep all the content coming. You can get things like early access for these Trek reviews and a bunch of other stuff. So go have a look, see if you're interested. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek. And somewhere out there, emerging from a pail of pink goo, is one Wesley Crusher in complete control of his abs.